Hey guys, I'm just tweeting everything out, so just give me 2 seconds. If you're in the chat, just let me know how you're doing, where you're watching from. Rough? Don't know what that means. Rough? Okay. How is everyone doing? Hi. Hello. Where are you guys watching in from? We're just going to get started in a couple seconds. Can you hear me well? All that good stuff before we go ahead and get started. Ohio, nice. What's the weather like out there? I have a feeling it might be cold. Okay. So let me get everything set up for this preview. If you're here watching, just go ahead and say hello in the chat box. While I get everything set up. I know we want to go ahead and watch Champions League in a little bit, so let's get this done. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So it might look funky for a second. Let me see. Alrighty. Can you guys see that all right? Hey, boo. How are you? Thank you for coming into my stream. We have to do something together, girl. We have to. It's sunny right now, mid-50s. Yeah, it's a little bit rainy here in LA, which is uncharacteristic for, obviously sunny LA. But yeah, I'm glad you guys are getting some sunshine. Hello, AP. How are you? Okay. So let's jump in. I just want to do a preview for the Olympiacos match. I did watch the press conference earlier, so let's just go over some of the talking points for this. And then we'll talk a little bit about the interview that Sokratis did with Football London. And if we have time, we'll talk about Sven Mislintat as well. And we'll do, obviously, predicted lineups and predicted scores and all that type of stuff as well. So basically, Arteta did start off the press conference kind of talking about, the fixture last season where we obviously crashed out of the Europa League playing Olympiacos at home at the Emirates. And that was really before coronavirus and all that kind of stuff started. It was one of the last games where fans were actually at the Emirates. So he talked about, he basically said, obviously, it was a really tough one to swallow. The way it happened at the end was really cruel. I'm sure we all remember it very well. So it's not like I have to really remind you guys of it. But, they were kind of asking him if this was a chance for revenge or redemption. And, basically Arteta said that he felt like this team that we have now is better than the team last season. And we've improved quite a bit. But in order to beat this Olympiacos side, who's pretty similar to the way that they were last season, we're going to have to be better than we were last time, which, is true. So, and he basically said that now we have another opportunity. It's the beauty of this game. It's a completely different context, but the reality is the same, that we have to beat them twice to go through in a competition, and we have to be better than them. So that's pretty obvious, nothing too out of the ordinary there. They did talk to Thomas Partey before this game. I think the thing about Thomas Partey is that his, just like this line says here, is that it has undoubtedly been a frustrating start to life in England for Thomas Partey. And I think we can all kind of agree that this is not what we would have envisioned after, triggering his release clause in the summer, that he would have played just so little games for us at this point. That being said, I just think that we have to be patient with him. I know that he's a world-class midfielder, and that comes with a lot of expectation, but realistically, coming from, La Liga to the English Premier League is always going to be pretty difficult, regardless of what kind of level you're coming from. I mean, Thomas played in that league for years, and the Premier League is just a completely different animal, on top of the fact that the fixture congestion is just so crazy this year. So we just need to give him time. Let's not give up on him just yet. But, he basically said that, I think this is just the start. I'm starting to get used to how my mates play, how the Premier League goes, and with time, everything will be good. I will do my best and will do my work to try to make sure that I will be at my best. So that's encouraging to hear from him. So he also kind of talked about the mistakes. One of the reporters was kind of asking about, like, will we stop playing out of the back? Will we continue on with that? And in true Arteta fashion, he was very, confident about the way that we play, and we'll continue to play with the same principles of playing out of the back and possession-based football. We just have to make sure that we are calmer and more secure to help reduce the number of individual errors. And it's about distances and concentration and making the right decisions. He said that we have to manage the games much better in certain situations that come with maturity, and that also comes from learning. So every time you do that, hopefully you can learn, and it doesn't happen again to the same player, but sometimes it happens to a different one. So essentially, he's just saying that these things happen and we just have to concentrate more and be more secure on the ball. We're not going to stop playing out of the back. I did notice that after the last game, a lot of fans were calling for us to kind of stop this type of playing out of the back, and kind of like the methodical buildup. But this is the way that we play. And he's basically saying that it's not going to change, so. They also asked him about Odegaard. How does Arteta feel about his integration and adaptation? Because he's been here for about 2 months now. And Arteta basically said that he's really happy with him. He thinks he's settled really quickly into the team, and with what we demand for our players, his behavior, his attitude, and his work rate has been phenomenal. And he has had better moments than others to give us the special qualities that he has. But overall, he's really happy with him. Odegaard is another one coming from a league that's completely different from the Premier League. And he's also coming in the middle of the season. So I know that he's on a short-term loan, but I wouldn't be surprised if we had some sort of plan to keep him a little bit longer. So, he's another one that we're just going to have to be patient with, and kind of see how this progresses. You guys let me know in the comment section what you guys have thought about Thomas Partey and Odegaard's time at the club so far, being that, maybe that your expectations were a little bit higher. Maybe this is what you expected. Just let me know in the comment section what you guys think. They also, kind of talked about this being a really big week for us, considering that, we have the North London Derby and, the games against Olympiacos and things like that. And, Arteta made it really clear that every week for us is really important. And there's still a lot to play for. He believes that there's still a pathway to Europe through the league and through Europa League. So we're going to have to win 4 or 5 games in a row. And if we do that, then things will look really different for us going into the latter ends of the season. But if we don't do that, which we have failed to do in the past, we may not make our marks, and I think that's fair. Personally, I think the league is pretty much done. I think that Burnley game really sealed our fate. The games that we have coming up soon against, West Ham and Spurs and Liverpool are not going to be easy games regardless of their form, so I do think that the Europa League is our best chance of securing European competition next season. So let's just kind of see, they also asked him how much he was focusing on the North London Derby with his team selection. And he said we just have to manage the squad, but obviously the main game is tomorrow and we have to focus on that. Tomorrow's game is going to help us for the weekend and it's going to help us for next week. So we have to focus. And I do agree with that. Like, we just have to gain some momentum. It's really difficult to put together a good run if you kind of start out stuttering. So I think this game is really going to give us the impact, if we do win it, the impact to maybe have a good game against Spurs, then play good against Olympiacos again, and maybe get a little run going, So yeah, but those are the most important parts out of the press conference. But he also talked about meeting up with Sokratis again. And he said that Papa is such a good character and a very popular player here. He was liked and loved by everybody, and it was a pleasure to work with him. He's such a pro, and he knows what we try to do, but there isn't a magic formula, and I'm sure he will try to do his best, and we will do the same. So moving on to Sokratis a little bit, I just wanted to touch on the interview that he did with Football London in regards to meeting up with Arsenal so quickly after his exit. And, he basically said that it's strange because just a couple of months ago, he was obviously with Arsenal, and he was there for 2.5 years, and he does speak with a lot of the players still, like David Luiz and Granit Xhaka and Aubameyang, and he was really popular. So that's not really, unrealistic. I'm sure that he still talks to them, and he's just kind of said everything is going well for him, and he's found it really comfortable and a lot easier to settle than he expected. And like any competitive player, he's focused on beating us. I mean, that's obvious. I don't expect him to go easy on us or anything, but he basically said that they're prepared, and so it'll be interesting to see what kind of impact Sokratis has for Olympiacos in our game against them tomorrow. Yeah. So let's get into some of your guys' comments. Let's see. Hezi FC says, I was in class when they got knocked out last time. Yeah, you guys just, in the comment section, let me know just kind of how you guys are feeling about the match. Are you confident, and that kind of thing. And we'll move into the predicted lineup in just a moment. Let me pull it up. Oh, also, that's one thing that I didn't really talk about is that he did talk about Smith Rowe, and he did say that Smith Rowe is pretty much being assessed before the game tomorrow, and that he did participate in full training. So he is recovering well, but I'm not sure if he's going to play or not. So let's go ahead and jump into the predicted lineup. So obviously we play in a 4-2-3-1. So I'm going to change the formation here. So for this game, I obviously expect us to start with Leno. I don't think I think that's pretty much a no-brainer. So right back. Let's think. Against Burnley, Callum Chambers played. He did a good job, but I don't expect him to play again. I think Arteta is going to try to kill this tie off in this game. So in his mind, he's going to play his best lineup into, from what I understand, I think he believes that Bellerin is his best right back. So I'm going to go ahead and drop Bellerin in at right back. So yeah, as good as Cedric has been, and I know that a lot of fans want to see Cedric play right back at this point. I just don't see Cedric playing over Bellerin in a really important match. I think Arteta trusts Bellerin, and so I think he'll get the nod in this game. And I also think he'll play in the North London Derby unless something crazy happens. So right-sided center back, I'm not sure about Rob Holding and his concussion. I'm really not sure about that. But I think he's going to go with David Luiz. I think, again, he's going to play in his mind what his best lineup is. And I think he'll go with David Luiz. So I'm going to drop David Luiz in here. And I think You guys let me know in the comment section if you think that Marie or Gabrielle should play. I think Marie has been really, really good in these last couple games. I think he was one of the better players against Burnley. But I have a feeling Gabrielle might come back in because in the past European fixtures, Gabrielle played with David Luiz. So I think I'm going to go with Gabrielle on this one. So many Gabrielles. Okay. All right. So left back, I think this one kind of picks itself, doesn't it? Kieran Tierney, no other option there. And I expect Kieran Tierney and Hector Bellerin to play in the North London Derby as long as they're fit. Yeah, you'd rather have Marie. I mean, it's difficult because I think they're both good in their own ways, but it just seems like Arteta tends to pick Gabrielle for the European matches and Marie for the Premier League matches. So I'm going to go with Gabrielle, but I do think Marie has been really, really good. Fabrice says the confidence is never too high because we never know which Arsenal will turn up. I mean, that's pretty much the reality, right? We don't really know what side is going to show up, but I think it's really important for us to play our best lineup, our most dangerous lineup against the Olympiacos side and try to put them away early, because last season we kind of played with a rotated squad. In the first leg, it was away to Olympiacos and we only beat them 1-0, which left us really vulnerable on the return leg or the home leg. So I think we have to go and try to, I think this is the away fixture as well. So I think we have to get 3 goals or so and kind of, put us in a really good position and give us some momentum going into the North London Derby. So yeah, I think Granit Xhaka will play. He's not injured. And I don't think Arteta's going to drop him just because he made a mistake. So, yeah, I'm going to put Granit Xhaka here. Obviously, I think his midfield partner will be Thomas Partey. We need that partnership to solidify again and become a constant. I think Smith Rowe will get rested because he really hasn't. I don't think he'll be recovered enough for this game, and I think he'd be better suited for the North London Derby anyway. So I'm going to pick Odegaard for this. I think he does pretty well in Europe as well. And let me know if you guys agree or disagree in the comment section. I'm just going through what it's kind of like a predicted lineup / what I want to see. So my predicted lineup, I don't know. It's kind of like a mixture. I don't know. Oh. Alexander G says we need to lock down the tie in the away game, so we need our strongest side. But you guys, what is our strongest side? I think we all have I think there's certain players that can be interchanged in that. Because personally, for me, the strongest side that I believe Arteta thinks is his strongest side, to me, is not his strongest side. But what is our best 11? That's a really good question. But I think this is a mixture of what I think he'll go with and what I'd like to see. So I think this midfield 3 really just picks itself. I don't really see Ceballos getting the nod over Thomas Partey. Again, we, just like you said, Alexander, we need to finish them off in the very first in the first leg. So this is where it gets interesting, and I think that this is where the most debate comes in for Arsenal fans and who should be starting in the front 4. Obviously, I think Martin Odegaard is going to play, not only because of Smith Rowe, but how complimentary Arteta is about the type of quality that he brings into the side. So I think he pretty much is a shoo-in. But right mid, I feel like it's going to be Bukayo Saka for obvious reasons. Didn't have the best game out against Burnley, but has been pretty much our best player all season. So I do see him starting. I do believe Aubameyang will start. we need goals. And if you get one or two chances, would you rather them fall to Lacazette or would you rather them fall to Aubameyang? I think you'd rather them fall to Aubameyang. And this is the final position. And quite frankly, I was not impressed by the front three. So basically, if we were to play Willian on the left-hand side, that would be the exact same front four that played against Burnley, and I didn't like it. I don't think there's enough goals in that front four, and I think it lacks balance. So as much as I feel like Arteta did say after the Burnley game that he was really proud of Willian and liked what he did in that game, but besides the assist, I didn't really see him do much, and I think we need goals. And again, if we had a chance fall to Pepe or Willian, who would you rather get that chance? And I feel like I'd rather Pepe, even though he missed his chance against Burnley. He just gets into better positions. He is a goal scorer, and I think he deserves it. He made a difference off the bench against Burnley, and I think he made enough of a difference to maybe warrant a start in this game. And I'm hoping that Arteta was resting him in that Burnley game for this game. I'm not sure what Pepe has to do to get consistent minutes in this side, but I'd like to see him on the left-hand side because we need more than one goal scorer. As Saka can score goals, but I just view him more as a creator. And so if you have Odegaard and Saka as your creators, and then you have Aubameyang and Pepe as your goal scorers, I think that that's a pretty strong side. So I'm going to go with Nicola Pepe. And this is the side that I am hoping / I think he might go with. But at the same time, we know how Arteta loves Willian, and he was so complimentary to him after the Burnley game that I was a little shocked by that, because besides the assist, I think he pretty much faded. He really did not do much. He didn't do much wrong, but he didn't do much, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're saying Pepe, Ceballos instead of Xhaka, Saka on the right, Aubameyang in the center, and Pepe on the left. He's not going to drop Xhaka, you guys. He's really, really not. I mean, he's defended him. He plays if he's fit, period. I don't see anything but Xhaka and Partey playing in this game. I would like to see Partey and Ceballos, but I feel like that almost complicates things for Arteta, because if they do well, I think that I don't think that would be good. Not to say that I think he's sabotaging, but I think this is what he wants to see, is Xhaka and Partey. So do you guys agree or disagree? Martinelli comes on for Pepe in the 60th minute if Pepe is not cutting it. Yeah. The thing is Martinelli is if he wants to play on the left-hand side, he's pretty much behind Willian. So I don't see him, not only do I not see him starting in this game, I don't see him getting any minutes either, to be honest. I think we want to see Martinelli play, but Arteta's been hinting for the last couple of weeks that he's not ready. So I don't think he'll play. Hi, Aslan. Aslan says, hello. Hi, what's good? What up, Jess and Chatbox fashionably late. You are fashionably late, but you're just in time. So we're doing the lineup, and if you guys agree or disagree, let me know. But this is what I'm going with for this game. And then I do want to touch on the comments that Sven Mislintat made about the players that he brought in. And we'll kind of rate them and talk about their time at Arsenal, because I think it's really interesting, some of the things that he said. Sophie says, yeah, I'd like to see Partey and Ceballos, but I think he will pick Xhaka and Partey. I agree with most of your lineup, maybe Cedric into the right back position. I think the only, I think I would like to see Cedric, but I just think Arteta has his favorites. And if this game is so important, that I would expect to see his favorites play. And that's not to be condescending. I know every single coach has their favorites, but if this is a really important game, I would expect to see David Luiz, I expect to see Bellerin, and I expect to see Xhaka. And that's just I would, and I'm putting Pepe there because I'm hopeful, but I wouldn't be surprised if Willian started on the left. Aslan says, agree with your starting 11. One change would be Cedric for Bellerin. I know a lot of people want to see that change. Hey, Mom. Says, looks good. Fabrice says, I have a feeling Willian will start over Pepe. Again, yeah. I putting Pepe on the left-hand side for me is more hopeful than a prediction. I would not be surprised if I saw Willian on that side. So, yeah, guys, let's jump into... One second. All right. So if you guys are not aware, Sven Mislintat did a interview with The Athletic that came out this morning. And he spoke a little bit about the players that he had brought in, kind of like his struggles of dealing with like Raul. And he did say some things about Arteta that were interesting. And I'm not sure if you guys have read his article or not, but I just wanted to kind of go through some of the players that he brought in and kind of talk about their time at Arsenal, because I think it's pretty interesting. If I can find where I wrote them down. I probably know them off the top of my head, to be honest. So Sven Mislintat is one of those interesting characters where I think that he's really good at what he does. He's very good at identifying talent. Very, very good. And I think he fit really well with Arsene Wenger in that respect. He did talk about how, getting the nod from Arsene Wenger was very important for him. And he's carried that type of philosophy on to from Arsenal to Dortmund to Stuttgart. And that's just pretty much what he believes in, is that it's okay to work with less as long as you know how to identify the talent, which is something that is kind of like in the fabric of the Arsenal way. Being an Arsenal fan for so long, you're used to seeing players kind of come in that don't have, a lot of sparkle around them, a lot of shine around them, and they become stars at Arsenal. That is a part of the club's fabric, because Arsene was here for like 20 years. So that's really, I think that's something that I'd like to see come back. But ultimately, when they decided to go with the structure at the club before, right after Arsene had left, it was Raul and Sven Mislintat and Ivan Gazidis. And they wanted to structure the club and the recruitment set up to be, partly stat DNA, partly recruitment, and partly agent relations. But as we know, when things started to progress, Sven Mislintat and Raul did not get along. And that structure never really came to fruition because there was a really big power struggle between the two. And ultimately, we know that Raul, he won that battle. The club decided to go in his direction rather than going in the Sven Mislintat direction, which I think is also their way of saying that we don't want to do it the Arsene way anymore. We want to strip Arsene, like the identity of Arsene, away from the club and start anew. I don't think there's anything wrong with agent relationships, but I also think that you can't rely on them because you end up with the Pepe situation. It's just like, if you look at Pepe, may have been the type of player that we wanted, but instead of going after Pepe, why couldn't we go after somebody like Rafinha or Traore? Two players that are very similar to Pepe, but cost a quarter of the amount, and that's pretty much, I think Raul wanted us to kind of be a Barcelona type of club where we spend insane amounts of money and don't sell players and just mismanage the books. And it's all about commercial and having big name players on the books. But Arsenal can't run that way. And a lot of that is because we're self-sustaining model. So a lot of what we have to be able to achieve is bringing in players for a certain fee and being able to sell them on for profit. And those are things that Barcelona has been unable to do. And he was a part of that. And we were not able to do that either. So it's really frustrating. I did tweet yesterday that, Guillaume Balaga was saying during his Champions League kind of like buildup that Barcelona owes like $1 billion, and that is the type of destruction that Raul types kind of bring to the club because they mismanage. They just keep mismanaging the money, so I can understand why him and Sven Mislintat didn't get along, because not only were they not on the same page, but they were unwilling to kind of mesh the two ways of running the club. Even stat DNA to a certain extent wasn't used in my eyes, wasn't used correctly, because that's how we ended up with what was his name? Was his name Lucas? That Lucas Perez. And it's also how we ended up with El Neni. So I think we have to be able to mesh the three, the data analysis, grassroots, recruitment, and agent relations. And we just haven't been able to do that. So Sven Mislintat, to me, is somebody that is very good at what he does, but the way that he wants to run a club in the modern era doesn't really stand up in the Premier League the way that he's been able to implement it in the Bundesliga, because there's just too much money in the Premier League. And we're just in a modern era where you're going to have to integrate more than one way of bringing in players. Alexander G says, these next 2 games will be interesting to see if Arteta can adapt. Yep, I agree. Sophie says, I know this isn't anything to do with the lineup, but I just want to say how much I love your channel. Oh, thank you, girl. And your knowledge on football is amazing. You're like my inspiration. No, you're like my inspiration, girl. Somerset Gunner says stat DNA and contract base is a joke. I don't agree that it's a joke. I just think you have to use it. There has to be the right people in place that know what they're doing. And that's been my biggest criticism of the Cronkies, is that if you want to be an absentee owners, if you want to be absentee, you have to get the right people in place to run the recruitment, and we just didn't have the right people. There's nothing wrong with stat DNA. I know Liverpool really relies on stats to recruit players, but what they also do is they make sure that they scout the players in person, figure out what their mindset is about, so it's about more than just one way. It's about who's running those certain departments and can they work together to create a recruitment plan that really works for their club. I don't have an issue with contact-based or stat DNA. I just think when you have Raul running it, it's a joke. You know what I mean? Aslan says, do you feel that if Sven Mislintat was still here working with Edu and Arteta, would that have been a winning formula? I'm not sure, because I think that Edu also kind of has a strong personality, and so does Arteta. So I'm not sure if there's more cooks in the kitchen, if that would be a good idea. I don't know. I don't really know. I would like for there to be more grassroots recruitment at Arsenal, but I feel like we're kind of moving away from that, and we are teetering between stats and agent relations. So I'm not really sure. But I do like the Sven Mislintat way, because that's what I grew up on. Knowing about Arsenal is that we literally had recruitment on the ground in these like crazy places looking for untapped gems, and that we've kind of lost that. Somerset Gunner says it's fraudulent. Hey, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel, huh? Alexander G says, Sven's credibility was running out. Sokratis, Mustafi, El Neni. We will get to that. I have a list of the actual people that he brought in. Xhaka would be good on stats. I mean, that's very true. And that's the thing. It's like, I think what you need to do is you put the requirements in the computer, and then see what results come about, based on that. But then you have to go deeper and go a layer deeper and actually look at these people play in person. There's stats, and then there's the eye test, and also getting to know the players, and their mindset. I think that that's really important. So I think you use the computer to just kind of get a pool of players that fit the requirements in terms of price or player profile, and then you have to go a layer deeper. And I think that we don't go the layer deeper, and that's how you end up with El Nenis and these types, So let's kind of talk about the players that Sven Mislintat has actually brought in, and we'll kind of rate them. Let's see. So let's talk about Sokratis. Sokratis is somebody that obviously Sven Mislintat brought in from Dortmund. And I think at the time, because he was at Arsenal for about 2.5 years, so that would mean that when he got here, he was 29, I think, 20, 28, 29 years old. What were we thinking there? No long-term strategy there, but this is also in the era in which we felt like we just needed a little bit of stability to make it into the top four. And that mindset has been proved wrong, because every single time that we try to cut corners, we don't make it. We fall short. Sokratis is not a bad player. He had a lot of experience. Dortmund was a good team. AC Milan is a good team. But ultimately, I just think that he's an old school defender that didn't really fit what we needed. What do you guys think about Sokratis? I don't dislike Sokratis, but I didn't like him either. I just think he was kind of like old school in a way. We needed defenders that could play out of the back. And I ultimately think that that's why Arteta never used him, is because, I just don't think he could play that way, playing out of the back. He's a very old school type of defender. Fabrice says, I think that Gazidis, Raul, and Mislintat appointings were doomed from the start. Gazidis high-tailed Raul and Sven clashed different philosophies. What were they thinking? I think because other clubs have been able to implement, bring those three, recruitment styles together. But again, you can't have egos and power trips. And Raul wanted all power, everything to go through him, because ultimately, and I don't want to speak as though I was standing there in the room when it happened, but what we can kind of conclude from everything that we've learned about Raul is that he was running the recruitment by himself, and a lot of people were kind of behind the door where they didn't know what was going on. And the only thing that I really can conclude from that is that he didn't want people to know what he was doing. So you can't have somebody like Sven sniffing around trying to bring you, players from the depths of France or wherever. That's not your recruitment strategy. You want to be able to use agent relations. So I don't know. I think it's more about egos and that kind of thing, because I do think that those three ways of recruitment can work with the right people involved. Alexander G says Sokratis was the wrong player for the modern system. Exactly. He just wasn't a modern. Everybody is playing out of the back now, and he's just that old school type of defender that's like just no nonsense type, and it just was never going to work. So, and I think he was just on the wrong side of 30 ultimately, right? And it just didn't work out. It just didn't work out. Aslan says, in my opinion, Sokratis was a good signing. He was mistreated and disrespected by Arteta. In what way? Is it because he wasn't added to the squad? He was left out of the squad? What do you think? Because I just ultimately think Arteta looked at it and said, who can play out of the back with their feet? And Sokratis was the one that couldn't do it. All right. So let's talk about somebody that we probably love to forget in Lichtsteiner, right? Wow. I think he was like a free. Was he on a free from Juventus? And he was a part of like that. I want to say he was a part of that Allegri team, that was really good, that had won the Champions League. Correct me if I'm wrong. So when I was thinking, I was like, oh, we're getting, a good right back. And that's not what we got. That's not what we got. Lichtsteiner is somebody that I'd love to forget. Again, I think we were trying to cut corners there. And it just hasn't worked out for us. I would like to see us use our academy better. I would rather see an 18 or 19-year-old come up from the academy and be backup for our senior players, instead of us going into different trash bins looking around for free transfers that were never going to work. He never fit in. I think he was a part of that back line that played against Southampton that broke my heart. It was like Lichtsteiner, Mustafi, and Kolasinac and somebody else. And it was just like, what am I looking at here? I mean, you could just tell he never fit in. Let me know what you guys thought about Lichtsteiner. That was another Mislintat signing. All right. So Torreira, that's an interesting one. I think when Torreira came in, I was very, very excited about this player because he had just played in the World Cup for Uruguay and he was amazing. Came in at about 24 years old, right age. But the issue there was that we brought in somebody that wasn't what the coach wanted, which is always going to be an issue. You know, Unai Emery wanted like Steven Nzonzi. He wanted Thomas Partey, and he ended up with Torreira. And as good as Torreira was, I just think because of his stature, he wasn't what the coach really wanted. And he ultimately never adapted to London, which is an issue. But my issue with the Torreira thing is that he's been mismanaged to the point that we're not going to be able to recoup what we purchased him for. We're going to have a hard time selling him. And that's unfortunate because he's 24 years old. We should be able to sell him for what we bought him for, but he's not going to places. He didn't play for Arsenal towards the end, and he's not really playing that much for Atleti. So I don't really know. I really don't know what's going to happen with that. But I personally like Torreira. I just think that the way that we're trying to play now, if you look at the way Arteta plays, he was never going to play for Arteta, like ever. You know, it's just unfortunate, you know, but I think the value destruction of Torreira is more my issue because we bought him for about 25 million and I'd be surprised if we got that back for him, even though he's such a young player. And I do feel sorry for him that he never really adapted to London. And there were rumors going around that he just didn't feel like he was a part of the team. And that's really, really unfortunate. What do you guys think about little Lucas Torreira? Alexander G says, Lucas, great player for the right system, but his time at Atletico is worrying. He doesn't play. I don't know why they brought him in. I mean, I just think that, so how I really think about the Torreira situation is that instead of buying Torreira, we should have bought N'Golo Kante when we had the chance. If we wanted that profile of CDM, that's who we should have got. We missed out on N'Golo Kante because Arsene Wenger didn't want to pay his agents. Big, big, big mistake. We had the perfect opportunity to buy the best CDM, you know, in the world for the next 5 to 6 seasons. And we just, because we didn't want to deal with the agents, we didn't bring him in. Then we ended up bringing in Granit Xhaka because he's listed as a CDM, but he's really not. So we wasted 35 million on him as well. And then when we decided, you know what, we should have got the N'Golo Kante type of CDM. Let's put it in the computer. Stat DNA spit out Lucas Torreira. But again, did we go and look at his personality? He wanted to go to Napoli as well. We weren't his first choice. So again, I think this was the type of transfer that could have been avoided if, one, we had been more open to agent relations back then and got the player. Sometimes you have to get the player. You can't go back and get somebody similar because as much as some players have the same profile, they're completely different players. And to me, no matter what the stature is and how similar we think N'Golo Kante and Lucas Torreira are, they're two completely different players. You know, and you even see N'Golo Kante is struggling a little bit at Chelsea because I think the midfield is changing and you have to have bigger players, you know, so it was just doomed from the beginning. He didn't even want to come to Arsenal. He wanted to come to Napoli, but the deal fell through, you know, so if that's the case, don't bring him in anyway, you know, so yeah, Torreira, like him, but I don't know what's going to happen with him. C. Finnan says we need to cash in on Torreira. He doesn't like London, so he will not be in the future. A shame as I do like him as well. Yeah, I like him. You know, but we do need to find a way to recoup as much as we can for him. Somerset Gunnar said he would rather keep Torreira than Ceballos, but you would rather that. But Arteta, if you look at the type of players that he likes, as I think Torreira is better than maybe what he's given credit for, but he likes more technical players, and Torreira is really like a little bulldog. So it's never going to work out. Alexander G says Lucas is a great player for Serie A. He'll be in demand there. I mean, he was in demand over the summer. I just think that the problem is that people didn't have the type of money that we wanted for him. So we ended up loaning him to Atleti. I don't know if there was something to do with the Thomas deal there. Maybe we were trying to sweeten the deal, but it didn't work out that way. But I think he will end up in Serie A, after his loan spell with Atleti ends. Aslan says Conte for 30 million and Xhaka for 35. I mean, Arsene was very, very against agents and the agent fees. And I just think that we made mistakes and we paid for them. So let's go on to the next one. Somebody that's actually been in the press a lot lately is Mavropanos. So Mavropanos is somebody that I think injuries has really affected his usability. He's a good young player. He's playing really well for Stuttgart. And I think he's a very Sven Mislintat type of signing. Young, raw, needs to be developed. But I think that he's somebody that we would be able to make a profit off of. I don't see him coming back to Arsenal. Would I want to see him? Probably not. I wasn't convinced by him when he was at Arsenal, and I think he might be closer to his level now at Stuttgart, but he is playing really well. And they want to keep him on loan for another season. So what do you guys think about Mavropanos? Would you like to see him come back in, or are you okay with him just kind of staying at Stuttgart? Somerset Gunnar says, yeah, we really need that zippy footy back. It's been really heartbreaking few years. Yep. Yeah, being an Arsenal fan can be a little bit painful, can it? C. Finnan says, has anyone even seen him play? If you're talking about Mavropanos, yes, I have watched him play for Stuttgart. And I think that's the perfect place for him, because if you watch Stuttgart play, you watch the type of team that they are, they have so many good young players that are being developed in the Bundesliga, which is a very good league for young players to develop, whereas the Premier League is not really like that. So he's in a system and with a team that really appreciates him without the pressures of needing to be in top four. And I think that that's important for us to take into consideration, is some of these players are just not good in a team that is trying to get to a certain level. So I think he has the right stature, the right mindset. He's a good player, but I think he's where he needs to be. Not seen enough of the chap myself, and I think if anybody, we should be moving out Holding and Luiz eventually. I mean, Arteta likes Luiz. I wouldn't be surprised if he got the extension, and Holding just got a new contract, so they're not going anywhere, Let's talk about Guendouzi. So Sven Mislintat did say that in regards to Guendouzi and Torreira, he would like to sit down with Arteta and talk to him about why they can't fit in his system. And if Guendouzi is not playing, then the midfielders that are playing above him should be like world-class midfielders, which to me is a little bit of a dig on Arteta. Basically, I think what he was trying to insinuate is that Guendouzi and Torreira are no less of players than like Xhaka and Ceballos and Elneny. When he talked about how Guendouzi always wants the ball and he makes mistakes, but that's okay, and things like that. I think he wants to defend the signings, because he obviously, if you felt like they were good enough to play for Arsenal, you would want to back them. But we need to apply context to a lot of these situations. Guendouzi's time at Arsenal is not just about how he plays, it's about his mindset and his attitude. And he's another player that, if we had looked at his prior relationships with his manager, we probably should have never brought him in. He's been a trouble child for a long time. And he's also having issues at Hertha Berlin. So I think if you apply context to that, Guendouzi may have a lot of good qualities, which I do believe he has, but for a culture that's fragile in itself, Arteta, a young manager, cannot have a 21-year-old out like acting out, no matter how good he is. So Sven needs to apply context to this. Yeah, he's probably not that much worse than El Neni, but as Arteta's already said, El Neni doesn't have an ego. And we know Guendouzi has an ego the size of this room, so, got to apply a little context there. Aslan says, El Neni, Torreira, Xhaka, Ceballos are all average, okay players that are unfortunately not good enough. We need younger, hungrier, mobile ballers. I do agree with this. I think they're all pretty much the same-ish level, just some. Arteta basically chose who he liked, and that's what most managers do when they come in. Alexander G says, Mavropanos is a good kid with potential, but we need to cash in on him. I agree with that. C. Finnan says, I hope we do more background checks on our potential signings. Exactly. Regardless of what the agent says, regardless of what the stat DNA says, we need to do better checks on these players and make sure that the mindset is correct too. That's really important. So I do agree with that. Alexander G says, Mateo has a ton of potential, but we don't need the head case. Cash in if we can. And that's a big if. Who wants Guendouzi? I think a player that looked like was certainly going to get us 40 million a couple years ago is we're probably gonna struggle to get 20 for him if anybody wants him. So that's really unfortunate. But I mean, we got him for 8 million. So anything above that, I think is a win for us. I love the kid's passion, but his attitude will be his downfall. It will be. Somerset Gunnar says, I'm for the Luis extension. Holding was contacted for a sell-on. All right. Just a couple more, you guys. We have Mkhitaryan. So he's listed as a Sven Mislintat signing, but I'm not sure if he really is, because obviously he came from Manchester United in the swap for Alexis Sanchez. But ultimately, this is another player that didn't work out. I know that they have a connection from Dortmund. And as much as I love Dortmund, if you guys know anything about me, they're not my second team, but I follow them. I love them a lot. There's not a lot of players from that team that I would really want at Arsenal. It's a completely different league, completely different style. And I like Mkhitaryan. I think he's a good player, but he was never going to work out for us. That swap deal just stunk, didn't it? It just smelled like crap. It was just not good. And I'm glad he's gone. And he looks like he's happy, where he is. So we don't have to go much into him. But Mkhitaryan, a failure. Leno. I think we can put this one as a success for Sven Mislintat. I believe he came from Bayer Leverkusen. He was brought in because he was decent with the ball at his feet. He's been a really good servant for us over the years. It's unfortunate what happened with him and Emi Martinez and the constant comparisons that the fans make, because they fell in love with Emi Martinez for 2 months. But Leno has been a good servant, and I think that this can be put in the success category for Sven Mislintat. What do you guys think about Leno? Aslan says, should we hire Father Wenger to do house visits to meet the parents before the future signings? Somebody needs to really check these players and make sure that they have the right mindset, because a lot of these players, we can look at it and just say, maybe the mindset wasn't right. And those are things that you can tell about a player before you bring them in. So we do need to do background checks. I'm not sure if Wenger should be doing them, but somebody needs to be doing it. Leno was a W, the only one in the bunch. No, we have another one. We have another one that's probably going to be a W as well. Leno, 100%. I think he got that one right. So last but not least, I think we can all say that this has been a success, and that's Aubameyang. Aubameyang is a Sven Mislintat signing from Dortmund in the January transfer window, has been the best player for Arsenal since he's been here. What more can you say about Aubameyang? I mean, there's things about him that I don't always like, but ultimately as a goal scorer, he's been second to none. Besides this season, he's been immaculate. And I think if we had built the squad around him better, we would be more successful. So Sven Mislintat, I think, did a really good job with that particular signing. You wanted Abba for years, yeah. I mean, before Thomas Partey came in, he was the only world-class player that we had. And in years gone past, we've always been able to look at and be like, yeah, he's world-class, he's world-class, he's world-class. And this is besides Ozil, because although he's a world-class player in terms of like what he's done in the past, in his latter years of being at Arsenal, especially since Aubameyang has been here, he has not been world-class in performance levels. But that's not to say that he's not a world-class player. But I think Aubameyang has been our best player, our most important player. And, you know, I think it's a good signing. I just think that it's just a shame that we couldn't build the squad around him better. You know, it would have been better if, just imagine if we had gotten Aubameyang in the season that we should have won the league. Like if that was Aubameyang instead of Giroud, we win the league, don't we? You know, so yeah, I think that was a very, very successful signing. So you guys, it's been almost an hour. So, you know, I've really enjoyed this. I hope you guys liked the match preview and then just talking a little bit about Sven Mislintat and his interview and all that kind of stuff. Do not forget to, you know, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Again, I have a lot more content coming out that I think you guys will enjoy. Feel free to share this video with anybody. And hopefully the next time that we're talking, we will be discussing a win over Olympiacos. I'll also be on the live stream tomorrow for Arsenal Vision. So be on the lookout for that. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.